Hello and welcome to my workshop. So today we're going to be working on the Jeep blacked out two-door half cab, and we're going to be working on getting a front and rear bumper as well as the sliders. So let's get started. So I have some additional work I've completed on this Jeep off camera. One of them is to make the front mount, and I've used the Velcro. That's a very effective way to mount the truck, and it really allows you to pull the body off very quickly. Front mount, because of the height and the way this thing was set up, I ended up having to cut a notch in that for around the motor. I probably could have just shifted the mount forward, but to be quite honest, that's plenty enough to hold it on. I also have the transfer case installed. Now what I did in this one is I made it so that coming out of the transmission, it passes directly through to the rear, and it goes through the transfer case and will actually overdrive the front wheels. So in the front, I've made this bar, and it's just a piece of key stock, and I've filed a section to match up with the little tab that comes off of this stock SEX102 servo mount. Now when you remove the battery tray in the front of this gets kind of loose because that uses that battery tray for support. So all you need to do is to come in here and make this bar. I pretty much have anything. I think I found key stock that works the best. Put a screw right here in the center, and then drill the new hole in the side, and that thing, everything is just super solid now. The whole front end is it's probably better than it was with the original. So that's a few of the things I've completed. I need to get the rear bumpers, front bumpers. So that's the plan. So let's get started. Okay, so I was able to get those two little pieces of key stock bolted onto the back of the truck. As I mentioned, I just tapped holes into the aluminum bracket that comes with the cantilever suspension. So that'll give it a good solid mount for the bumper. And the good thing about it is that it's a perfect placement. So if you want to run probably tube across the top, and then maybe a drop tube at the bottom, just a nice simple bumper. All I have to do is to notch out both sides of these after I shorten them up a bit. Once I silver solder this on, as long as it's 90 degrees, I'll know the bumper will be true, and that'll be good to go. So nice and simple bumper for the rear. Next we'll have to work out some mounts for the front. Let's get to that. Alright, so I'm working on the front bumper now, and look at me, a little bit different mounting system for the front. I had just these little metal pieces. So it's cut off this flat stock. It's just mild steel from the hardware store, but at this length and the way it's put together and bolted, it'll be perfectly fine. So what I'll end up doing is drilling two holes that match up with the two front holes, and then bolting this on to the front. And then similar to what we've done in the rear, we'll notch a spot for the tube to go in, and we'll run the tube bumper across the front and then start to work pieces off of that. So in order to get the width correct, I have another chassis rail laying around with the correct width on it. And so what I'll be able to do is to bolt it to this one, build the bumper, do all the soldering right onto this, and that way it'll transfer over no problem. And I don't have to worry about trying to dismantle this or getting the chassis messed up by burning the paint, because I've already have this one that's been burnt several times. But that's the plan, so let me get started drilling the holes. All right, so I've finished up the bumper. It's a very simple tube bumper, but I think it's turned out pretty well. It does a good job of camouflaging the battery box, and painting that battery box really does give it the kind of look of maybe a gas tank. Putting a little bit of angle on the bottom right here. But anyway, nice little simple bumper in the rear is complete. The one in the front we have made, just waiting on to get painted. And now we're going to focus on getting some sliders made. So let's get to that. Okay, so I was able to finish up the front bumper, the rear bumper, the sliders. Everything's done. The only thing I have left is the electronics. I'm going to put in the speed controller, servo, and get this thing running. And should be a very capable little truck here. So the both the front and rear bumper were just pretty simple tube bumpers, but they look really good with the truck. So it's a simple hoop at the top, bar running across. It's all tied in, and then with a little bit of a skid plate here, and just kind of add a little bit of extra detail when you're coming up over the rock to help it slip over. The sliders on the side, just tube attached to a little metal piece that's then bolted to an aluminum tray. The aluminum tray is bolted either side to the chassis and adds a good spot for mounting electronics up in here, as well as just kind of, covering up some of the bottom if you can see it from there. In the back, again, just a simple tube running across the top, hoop in the bottom. All in all, very happy with how this truck has turned out. Like I said, get electronics in and get this thing moving on its own power. Until then, we'll see you in the rocks.